What's what, sir?
Can you tell us your thoughts on the hit game, Rummikub?
Well, I mean, from what I've seen in the rehearsal, it looks a lot more fun than the other ones. It looks a little bit less kind of strict.
I personally believe that Robert Pattinson's description of the 1980 Spiel Des Jahres winner Rummikub on the 2011 Golden Globes red carpet to be the most accurate description of the game. Rummikub, an abstract game designed in the 1940s by Ephraim Herzano, was at a time Israel's best-selling export game, and eventually became a best-selling game in the United States. The game was played with tiles because in 1940s Romania, where Herzano grew up, card playing was outlawed under communist regime. Which is pretty based, right? Like, he really said, we're not playing cards. Duh, we're not doing that. We are in fact playing tiles, you silly goose. You stupid little idiot. Anyway, this game's like really good, which I just found out is a bit of a hot take, but you know what? I'm doubling down. So go ahead, get some popcorn, get a beer, do whatever you need to do, and let's break down Rummikub, which I believe to be a bit of a misunderstood game. So how does one Rummikub? Well, it might actually be a better question to ask how one doesn't Rummikub. Reading the rulebook to Rummikub is like gamer euphoria. It reminds me of fighting games, when the game basically just tells you all of your options and then says figure out a way to use them. The objective of Rummikub is to be the first player to get rid of all of their tiles from their rack by playing them into a center area using rummy-style rules. Rummikub is a game that is played in a round, where the number of games played in a round is equal to the number of players in the game. Usually my family and I will just play this game in singular games instead of rounds. If you won a game, you won, and we go on to the next one. That being said, the game is definitely intended to be played in rounds, and the more I did research for this video, the more that became very apparent. In the future, I'm definitely going to be playing this game in rounds more, and if you really want to test your player skill, you should be playing in rounds. The game has a very short and simple components list, being 2 sets of tiles numbered 1 through 13 in 4 different colors. The game also comes with 2 joker tiles and 4 racks so players can hold their tiles. To set up the game, you're going to place all of the tiles into a pool and shuffle them up. Player order is determined by each player picking up a tile from the pool. Whoever picks the tile with the highest value gets to go first. Yahoo! Each player then takes 14 tiles from the pool and places them on their rack. You're now ready to play. The bread and butter of Rummikub are sets, of which there are 2 kinds, a group and a run. A group is a set of either 3 or 4 tiles of the same number in different colors. A run is a set of 3 or more consecutive numbers all in the same color. To start the game, a player must do an initial meld. Spoiler alert, this is the worst part of the game. An initial meld is any combination of sets from your rack that total a value of at least 30. So, for example, you could play a group of 3s, totaling 9, then you could play a run of 7, 8, and 9 red tiles for a total of 33. These sets will go in the middle of the table for all players to manipulate and interact with. If a player is unable to meld, they take a tile from the pool and pass the turn to the next player. So once you meld, you can finally start playing the game. And this is where the game kicks it up a notch. So the rulebook goes into a bunch of different types of moves that I will be going over in a little bit, but more or less the rule of thumb is on your turn you can do whatever you want to get tiles out of your rack, so long as when you are done, all groups and runs on the table are legal. This means you can pull from previous sets to place new sets, break up old sets to place new sets, add on to previous sets, and so on. You can do as much as you want on your turn, but your turn must be completed within 1 minute. On a turn where you can't do anything, you pick 1 tile from the middle. For me and my family and my friend group who I've played this game with, the 1 minute rule is more of a hurry the fuck up kind of rule. We don't really bust out a timer and say you have to complete your turn in 1 minute, but if you're really taking time, we're just gonna tell you to stop and keep playing. However, the timer is a vital aspect of the game. I hear a lot of people say that there's way too much downtime in this game, and I truly do not understand how that is possible, considering that there is a core mechanic in this game that goes against that. The game literally says in its rulebook you have a minute a turn. I don't understand how 3 minutes between turns is too long. I think you're all just playing the game wrong. I'll be honest. Like I previously said, if you are unable to take any moves, you pull 1 tile from the pool. However, if you start doing a bunch of moves and are unable to complete all of them by the end of a minute, you are supposed to put all of the tiles back and take 3 tiles from the pool. It's a bit of a weird distinction, but it is one stated in the rulebook. The last thing I want to mention before getting into the specific types of moves you can take are the Joker tiles. The Joker tiles can be played as any color and number. When being replaced, they must be replaced by what they represent. Once replaced though, they may be played as any tile again. Anyway, let's get to the types of moves that you're going to be able to perform on your turn. Yo, what's going on today? We are counting down the top 5 moves you can take in the game Rummikub, and starting off, we're going with the classic. We're going with one that you really just can't go wrong with. We're starting with add 1 or more tiles from your rack to extend a run move. I mean, this one is pretty self-explanatory. Let's say you got a red 6 through 10 in play. You can play from your rack a red 5 or a red 5 and 11 or a red 4 and 5, so on and so forth. Overall, a simple, easy, classic move. Next up, we got another classic. We got remove a 4th tile from a group to make a new set move. This one is also pretty straightforward. Let's say you have a complete group of 5s. You have an orange 4 and 6. You can remove the orange 5 from the group and use it to place down an orange run of 4, 5, and 6. Absolute classic banger move. You can't go wrong with this one. Okay, you've heard about the classics, but have you heard about adding a 4th tile to an already existing set so you can remove one of those tiles to create another set move? This one is a bit tricky, so let's break it down. Let's say you have a red 9, a blue 6, and a black 6 on your rack. On the table, there is already a red run of 6, 7, and 8. You can first add your red 9 to the run to make the run a red 6, 7, 8, and 9. But then, you can remove the red 6 to form a group with the other 6s you already have. And this one is pretty big brain, but get ready for splitting a run move. This one is actually easier than the last one. Let's say on your rack you have an orange 4, and in play is a run of orange going from 2 to 7. We can split this run up and play our orange 4, creating 2 runs. One of orange 2, 3, 4, and another of orange 4, 5, 6, and 7. But this move simply pales in comparison to the combined split move. Alright, let's say you got a blue one on your rack and you really want to play it. Currently in play, you see an orange run of 1 through 4 and a full group of 1s. Here's what we can do. Take the 1 from the orange run and the black from the group of 1s to form a new group of 1s. This is still legal because in the end, we still have a valid run and a valid group. And last but not least, the godfather of all big brain plays, the multiple split move. Alright, let's set the scene. You got a black 10 and a blue 5 on your rack. And in play, we have an orange run of 5 through 7, as well as a red run of 5, 6, and 7. Additionally, we also have a black run of 5 through 9. First, we take all of the 5s from these runs and throw in a 5 from our rack to make a complete group of 5s. Then we pull all of the 6s from each of these runs to create a group of 6s. We do the same with the 7s. With the remaining 8 and 9 from the black run, we can add the 10 from our rack to create a run of 8, 9, and 10 in black. A move like this is truly the holy grail of Rummikub big brain plays. These are just the names that the rulebook gives moves. You can use any combination of them to perform your turn. So knowing the names of them isn't going to help you. The game is really freeform. The sky is the limit on your turn, as long as you're big brain enough to actually complete your moves. Once a player has gotten rid of all of their tiles, they call out Rummikub. Scores are then calculated. Each loser of the game gets negative points for the game equal to the value of their tiles left on their rack, while the winner of that game gets a positive score of all the losing scores. So for example, if II wins, he is going to add up Mimi, Gongon's, and Baby's negative score as positive values. So let's say their scores were -2, -11, and -24. II would get 37 points for the round. Once all games in the round have been played, the player who has won the most games wins the round. Yay! If there is a tie in game wins, the player with the highest total score wins. I have to start this section off by saying Rummikub is a huge, massive W for communism. Rummikub is just the card game Rummy, more or less, but with tiles instead of cards. But I think the game being played with tiles makes it much more accessible. Colors instead of suits makes it much more clear as to what you are looking at on the board, assuming you don't have issues seeing color, which I do see as a potential issue with the red and orange tiles. The tiles are also smaller than the average playing card and are made of a weighty plastic. This makes placing them really satisfying as they slap the table with weight behind them. Hey guys, welcome to my new Rummikub ASMR channel. Today, we're gonna be playing Rummikub. I genuinely do not believe placing cards would be as satisfying. The tile's smaller size also takes up less of your play area, which makes the entire experience less cumbersome. You can also see more information at a glance and move stuff around more easily since the tiles are easier to pick up. If this game was never turned into a tile game and was just Rummy, the card game, played with a standard deck of cards, it never would have won the Spiel De Jahres because it wouldn't be a board game. So shout outs to communist regimes. Am I right? The fun of Rummikub is really the abstract puzzle that the game is. Trying to find the needle in the haystack of moves in order to drop just one more piece is addicting and satisfying to pull off. It's also extremely fast-paced, since the game puts a literal time limit on your moves. Now for my criticisms of the game, of which there are only few. With tight, abstract designs like this, I think they really either work or they don't. And hopefully I've made it apparent by now that I think this game works pretty well. My first and main criticism of the game is the lack of any mulligan mechanic. I find it very bizarre that this game has no mulligan. I've seen games where people are waiting to meld for more than half of the actual game. It feels really bad to have 20 tiles while your opponents have already whittled down to only a handful. That being said, when you finally can meld with a hand like this, you'll have so many pieces that you should have enough options to quickly get most of them out of your rack. So in the end, it does seem to balance out, which appears to be by design. That being said though, adding one mulligan I think would overall enhance the play experience. Even if a player who mulligans still ends up not being able to meld immediately, I don't think it's necessarily bad design that a player needs to take longer to meld than another, but I do think it feels worse for the player that still needs to meld while the other players are slamming tiles down on the table. Any extra utility in a situation like this, I think would overall smoothen the play experience. The other mechanic I find a bit odd in Rummikub is the round and game system. Keeping track of scores for the entire game, only for the game to be determined by number of wins, is a bit obtuse. If you're going to implement a round and game system where points are tracked, I feel like saying whoever has the highest score at the end of the game works just fine. I would assume that the point of game wins determining the winner is to be a shortcut for seeing who won the game, because if a player won 2 out of the 3 or 4 games in a round, statistically, I'm pretty sure they should pretty much always win the game. The scoring of the game itself is also a bit insane. The fact that a tile's number is its value for scoring is absolutely insane horseshit. You have an equal chance of pulling a 1 as you do a 13, so the fact that they are valued differently at the end of the game is actually silly as hell. I've seen game variants online, and I've also just seen people play this way accidentally, where each tile is valued as 1 for end of game scoring. And I haven't played it, so I can't say it's a perfect fix. But if you asked me, I would say that sounds like a perfect solution. Now I'd like to address some criticism of this game that I disagree with. And also, yes, I am recording this on a different day. I have rewritten this section of the video 3 separate times. This is my second time recording it, and I am on day 4 of COVID, so if I sound like shit, that is why. The first and biggest piece of criticism I'd like to address is the "it's all luck" accusations. Now, generally, when we talk about luck in games, I feel like it's usually in a negative light without actually targeting what is wrong with the luck or even where the luck is. Now, I think it goes without saying that Rummikub is a game with luck inside of it. That would be hard to deny. But I think when discussing that luck, we often make overgeneralizations about it. People love to just throw out arbitrary numbers about how much luck is in a game. This guy says that the game is 30% skill and 70% luck. How do you know that? How did you get to that number? This guy says it's only 40% luck, and Tom from Shut Up and Sit Down even says in his video,
it is overly reliant on luck.
I do think this begs the question though, how is the game too luck-based? Where's the luck coming from? Can we identify it? And how is it problematic towards the game's design? Also, I just want to point out that I respect Tom and his work a lot. I'm not trying to, start any beef, some board game beef. Now, I think generally when people are talking about luck in Rummikub, they discuss how pulling the right tiles at the right time will surely get you the win. And although that can help, I don't think it's the most egregious form of luck in the game. The most egregious form of luck in the game is melding, as a quick look through the Rummikub subreddit will show you the game's worst mechanic on full display. This mechanic alone is what takes most of the points off for this game, for me, at least. So how luck-based is Rummikub? Well, luckily, there's actually a study on that exact question, and it even appears to factor in horseshit RNG. One Alex Kaganovich and Odeya Bronzik created an entire report trying to identify how luck-based Rummikub is. I'd like to highlight the Why Rummikub is a Hard Problem section of this report, as I think it shows the complexity of the game quite well. With all of this complexity, they've determined that there were too many parameters for the scope of their project, so they focused mainly on getting their AI to find as many legal moves as possible and choosing the best one. And, well, you better be able to understand what all of this means very quickly, within a minute, I will say, if you're operating at such a high level that this game has become 70% luck. They created 3 robots, a smart robot, a greedy robot, and a random robot. The smart robot plays with a bit of strategy, refraining from creating 4-tile group melds, while the greedy robot attempts to place as many tiles as possible each turn. And the random robot is is, well, random. The smart robot won against the greedy robot 70% of the time, and the random robot 80% of the time. And just for shits and giggles, it beat the human player 67% of the time. Now keep in mind, this is with the robot only identifying one parameter of the possible variables in the game, which is identifying legal moves. They conclude their study by saying that the winning rates depend on player skill, but that luck also plays a large role in the game, so expecting an invincible robot would be absurd. This is what I find interesting about the report though. They say the game is both skill and luck heavy, which to me is pretty interesting. How can that be true? This brings me back to Tom's original statement that Rummikub is too luck-based. But looking at the game presented in front of me, outside of melding, I don't find that to be true. Rummikub is a lightweight, family-friendly, abstract game about setting up rows of numbers. The game is basically known for being played at your grandma's house.
And I'm not gonna lie, if there was no luck in this game, I would kick your grandma's ass every time. So I don't really know what to tell you.
We can clearly see from this study that the game has a pretty high skill ceiling, yet also a high variance of luck. So a player's skill really revolves around how good you are not only at the game, but also at managing the tiles you are dealt. Rummikub isn't a game where you can just handpick one game and say, yeah, this game is 100% luck, RNG hellfest. That's why this game is played in rounds. Rummikub isn't about winning every game. It's a game of averages. You have to get your average to be better than the other players. At least that's how I see it. I think the main thing I disagree with in Tom's video is basically him excusing some of the game's mechanics because he says the game works better as an activity than a game, luck being one of his key examples. I, on the other hand, think that the luck of the game making it so accessible that many different generations of people are able to play it together is actually what makes it a good game. I've really contemplated talking about Tom's video because in the end we did come to similar conclusions about the game, including what we think about the luck, but we just think these things for different reasons. I fundamentally disagree that the game works better as an activity. To me, playing a game is an activity, and games just have different purposes. I think this game serves its purpose quite well.
So yes, Rummikub definitely has luck inside of it, but if you were to say that it is mostly luck or has too much luck inside of it, I personally would disagree with you. Rummikub is a tile-based card game that was literally only made with tiles because of circumstance. And because of the nature of playing games with a standard deck of cards, luck basically gets involved regardless of what you do. I mean, take poker, for example, which is probably the most skill-based, luck-based game of all time. There's plenty of luck of what you draw, but what you do with it is up to you. Now, I will not say that Rummikub is more skill-based than poker. I think that would be disingenuous, but I hope you can see where I'm going with this point. TLDR, I think the amount of luck inside of Rummikub is perfectly acceptable for what the game is. If you think that it goes overboard in terms of luck, that is totally fine. It is not everybody's cup of tea, but me personally, if I was playing this with my grandma, I would accept it.
Anyway, let's get to throwing this game on the old tier list. Now, originally, I was going to place this game in GOAT contender tier. That's how much I like it. I think the time limit mechanic is super cool, and just the quick slapping of tiles on the table is super satisfying. But after sitting with it and writing the script and doing more research, I just don't think it can really contend for the greatest Spiel des Jahres of all time. So I will be placing it in the pretty good tier along with Hare and Tortoise. The core design of this game is pretty airtight. It does what it is trying to do
perfectly, in my opinion. And I don't think that makes it a perfect 10 out of 10 game or experience. I just think for what it's setting out to do, it basically does perfectly. There is talk online over whether a game like this can even win the Spiel Des Jahres today. And, well, Quirkle won in 2011, so in my opinion, the sky's the limit. But also, I don't really think that matters. Rummikub is a game that was made from rummy, a game played with cards. And I think it's pretty incredible that this game was even able to win. It won this award 40, 30 years after the game was even made, and I think the Spiel des Jahres really highlights different types of games. This is essentially a card game that won Game of the Year, and as a game designer, I find that really interesting. I don't think we should devalue this game. I really love Rummikub, and I hope that everyone can appreciate the game a little bit more.
6.5 out of 10, pretty good.